A late night shocker. The police chief of the city of Minneapolis steps down under a cloud of questions. It's drive time. It's Jason. We've been covering this breaking news since it happened last night. The police chief of Minneapolis, Brian O'Hara, leaving his position while he was under investigation. The mayor meeting with him, confronting him with evidence that Brian O'Hara tried to interfere with an investigation into him. An immense betrayal of trust in the man tasked with keeping our city safe. But the biggest thing I think that Brian O'Hara has gotten credit for is the work that's been going on over the last 5 or 6 years to restore trust in our police department. And I think we've seen incredible evidence of success, not as far as it needs to go, but just looking at what happened during Operation Metro Surge, the immigration, federal surge into our communities, the fact that local police largely were not the subject of protest by local residents. There was sort of a respect of like, our local police would never act this way. To me, it was a moment of progress. And then to hear that the police chief under investigation, and we have heard these rumors. And it's hard when you're a police chief because, man, your officers are out to get you. Political critics are out to get you. So it's hard to know when you hear rumors, all right, is this real or is this not? When you see complaints filed, is this real, is it not? But, man, to think the chief would get in there and try to meddle with the investigation is so disappointing and so upsetting. And the president of the Minneapolis City Council, Elliott Payne, is with us in studio. President Payne, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Your reaction, did you know this was coming or did you find out on TV like everybody else?
I got a brief heads up from the mayor with a phone call before the press conference happened, but I discovered it in near real time with the rest of the community. And I think disappointment is the right way to phrase it.
You had heard some of the rumors that have been out there.
There had been rumors swirling around the chief and his conduct. I could never find out what was going on. All I heard were rumors, and oftentimes it's reporters calling me trying to confirm these rumors, and I never had firsthand knowledge of it. And so I'm actually not surprised that he resigned after this discovery. I'm surprised that the mayor nominated him, knowing that he was investigating interference into that investigation.
So let's start with, and I'm surprised too. I'm surprised with that as well. And I've been reaching out to some employment lawyers trying to figure out like, all right, was he in a bit of a pickle where if you've got somebody under investigation, you don't have the results of the investigation. If you don't nominate him again after praising him and all of these, do you open up the city to legal action? That is the most positive version of this that I can come up with. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, there are real reasons to maintain confidentiality into these types of investigations. You don't want to open the city up to litigation, but you also want to make sure you're protecting the witnesses. You want to make sure you're not jumping to judgment without due process.
Maybe he didn't do it.
You have to leave room for that. That's why you have thorough investigations. I think my big critique right now is apparently the mayor knew about this as far back as May, opened up an investigation, closed that investigation, all of that without disclosing any of those facts to city council. The only thing close to that was me trying to raise this issue as we were coming up to a nomination saying, hey, there's a lot of these rumors swirling around. Are you looking into this? Is this something that you're going to weigh as you think about his nomination? And all he could share was, we've looked into it and we found nothing. But that did not tell me that there was an independent investigation, that there was a report. It's a huge lack of transparency coming out of the mayor's office. And I think it's regrettable because that transparency is how we build trust. And it's how we get to those outcomes that we all share. We want a police department that is accountable to the community, that we can trust, that keeps us safe. This undermines all of that. And it's really, really saddening.
Elliott Payne is the president of the Minneapolis City Council. So in a functional city council mayor relationship, I would expect the mayor to bring you guys in and say like, hey, there are, as the Star Tribune reported, on May 27th, so about a month ago, there are 30 some open investigations into the chief. I think even the mayor doesn't know what the info is or what the allegation is with those investigations, although perhaps he knew about some of them, but I don't know. Like, this is a confidential process, which maybe it shouldn't be. If you're going to have a strong mayor in charge of a police department, shouldn't somebody know? Like, hey, this is BS probably. This is a crabby, New Hope resident filing a complaint. Here are a couple police complaints, which maybe are something, maybe are not. I don't know. You could have a dashboard. Here's a red risk. Here's a yellow. Here's sort of a, seems like a nothing, right? Couldn't there be some way to bring in, what about Todd Barnett? What about, I mean, do any of these people know what's going on here?
Well, and that was the main concern. I mean, this is why we were skeptical of Commissioner Barnett's nomination, is because this was an unresolved series of rumors that were just swirling around the chief. And we had no visibility into that, no visibility into the veracity of the claims or even what the allegations were. Because again, you hear it from all these angles, whether it's community or reporters, but without any like firm claims on it, we are trusting the mayor and the commissioner to provide that oversight.
Do they know?
They know something, it appears, because obviously going back to May, they at least confronted the chief to let him know that there was going to be an investigation, right? So even knowing that investigation happened would have been really helpful for us as city council as we were going into a confirmation vote a week from today.
I mean, my understanding was this actually goes back to December, that there was an initial contact in December, and then it all was put on hold because of the immigration surge. So that's a long time for something to be going.
Right. Yeah.
Why? All right. So first of all, I can understand, and I set this up by saying in a functional relationship, you would expect more disclosure. I do think the mayor perceives, and I don't know that he's wrong. I don't know that you are the primary person that takes every scenario, no matter what happens, and it becomes a time to turn the mayor into a piñata. I do think there are some city council members, my perception, not putting words into his mouth, but I think there is a perception that, look, there are a number of people on the council that do not like this mayor, disagree with him politically, don't like him personally. If he shares this information, I don't know that there's trust between the council and the mayor, which I blame all of you guys, but I don't know that there's trust to share that information.
Well, we have to set these personal differences aside. I am the president of the city council. He is the mayor of the city. We have a role and a responsibility and a duty to our community to honor these roles. And we, especially in the first 2 years of my time in office, almost every 2 weeks, we were having a closed session on another litigation matter associated with police conduct. We held all of that information confidential throughout. We are always in the loop on this type of confidential information, and we need to be trusted to hold that information confidentially because we do know what the consequences are. And so that was a political choice that the mayor made to keep us in the dark. There is a real good reason to keep this information confidential, but this was a deliberate choice to keep it confidential. And I think it was it harmed our community because we could have been able to offer him more guidance on how he should be moving forward with that nomination had we had more insight into it.
I agree. I mean, I think the harm here is tremendous. And I also worry, who the hell wants this job? What kind of candidates are you going to? Now, if you get somebody internally who wants this job, I think like, wow, that's a commitment to our community. But it does make me nervous where I think you have obviously a difficult task ahead as you continue to enforce the agreement made with the state. You have a difficult task in some city council members who are maybe more skeptical as to what sort of funding should be going with police. You have an out of control overtime issue in a city where funding for everything is an issue. I mean, I don't want this job. Do you worry about the caliber of candidates we're going to get?
Well, this is what's so disappointing about this. That was the question that was raised when Chief O'Hara was appointed. And we just recognized the 6-year anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. That is a world historical moment, not a Minneapolis only historical moment. This is a place where we are supposed to be able to define what the future of public safety is, what the future of constitutional policing is. And it's actually one of the most desirable jobs in the nation. And that's what attracted O'Hara to Minneapolis in the first place. I would expect that of our next candidate as well. We need to work collaboratively with the mayor to make sure we're doing our due diligence on those candidates, whether they're external or internal.
What are you going to do to bridge that gap?
I do my proactive outreach to the mayor. I sent him a letter today saying, hey, bring us into this process, share the results of those previous investigations. We need to be at the table, explain your rationale, why you didn't share this with us, and do it. Let's work in good faith together to put the safety of our city ahead of our own personal differences. It's so important to the future of our city.
Was it a mistake to nominate Chief O'Hara, again, former Chief O'Hara, knowing that, just knowing the mere fact that an investigation was out?
Well, hindsight is 2020, and part of hindsight is having access to information. If I had the access to the information that the mayor had, I would not have brought that name forward for a nomination.
Do you know what the accusation was?
I don't actually know what the underlying accusation is of the original report that was released, or well, at least handed over to the mayor back in the summer of 2025. I don't know what the actual allegations are.
I've seen some reports or the investigation, some files sort of flying around that certainly made non-judicious use of a Sharpie, all the redactions. Do you believe that the public and you, the council, should have access to all of these investigative files now that he's no longer the chief?
I think to whatever extent that the law provides, the public should have some transparency into that. Absolutely.
Yeah, just hearing the accusation was about a sexual relationship with a city employee. Well, is it a police department employee? Is it a public works employee? Like, what are we talking about? We don't know.
I don't know either. And I'm the president of the city council. You would think I'd have some unique access to this type of information, but this is what's so worrying and troubling about this. And certainly the underlying allegations are very concerning, but I'm approaching this from a governance perspective. How are you governing the city as a body? That body includes the mayor and all council members. When he operates independently, this is the result of that. When you don't have those diverse perspectives that city council brings, those connections to community that city council brings, that's how you end up with these blind spots where you bring forward the nomination when there's all of this troubling background behind it. I think somebody with good judgment would not have done that. And I think that making these decisions collaboratively is what leads to strong judgment.
Does the mayor, as we talk with Elliott Payne, the president of the Minneapolis City Council, does the mayor deserve credit for acting quickly, for the language in the reprimand letter, for that moment where it was sort of appeared like it was going to be a you resign or you're fired scenario?
It should not have come to this moment in the first place. I don't think he should have been nominated in the first place. I think that at minimum, he should have waited until the investigation into the investigation interference was closed with some determination and then brought that nomination forward. But to bring the nomination forward before the investigation was complete, knowing back in December that there was a whistleblower raising these concerns, that's remarkably irresponsible to me.
Would you have fired him earlier?
I think that if I had the authority to do that and I had access to the information, these do feel like violations that would rise to that occasion. But again, I don't have the full information.
A little bit like not being at the end of the investigation. Now it appears that he got to the end of the investigation and took action yesterday.
Yeah, and he could have waited until yesterday to make a decision about nominating him.
I think that's fair. Elliott Payne, before you go, the interim police chief, and we don't know how long Katie Blackwell is going to have that job. It sounds like they're looking for somebody else to really be the interim. Do you have any information on whether it's going to be Blackwell, whether it's going to be someone else, and how you feel about Katie Blackwell?
Blackwell is really respected I believe, and I think will be a good leader in this transition. I think that we need to have a comprehensive view of the role and what we want out of the next chief before we jump to the conclusion about who that permanent chief should be. But I do feel confidence in AC Blackwell in taking on this really challenging appointment in this moment.
Elliott Payne, we appreciate you coming in and answering questions, and there'll be we all have a million of them for
Yeah.
sure
Yeah.
going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.